You know, the really remarkable study, you remember, for those of you interested in Alzheimer's, the NUN study up in Minneapolis, St. Paul, done by David Snowden and others? So Deborah Danner, who worked with David, David's an old friend of mine, went back, and what she did was these are nuns who volunteered their brains to science. When they died, their brains would be autopsied to look at the markers, the morphological markers of Alzheimer's disease. So she went back and looked at the autobiographical writings that these women had completed as young ladies when they were entering into the order. And it turns out that the sisters who used the greatest number of positive emotion words lived 6 to 10 years longer than those using the fewest positive emotion words. Okay, it's pretty interesting. That's again, it hasn't been replicated, but it's suggestive, and it was published in the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology, which is again the foremost competitive peer-reviewed journal in that field. Causality, sure, if someone is depressed or physically disabled, it's likely that he will not be able to engage in helping others. Nevertheless, after controlling for pre-existing health, there is the significant reduction in mortality. Causality of giving is clearly shown in the studies that focus on biomarkers, which is why I've given a little attention to them. So what about your compassion as healthcare professionals? Something that patients expect. It gives them a safe haven, a sense of calm and security when all their markers have been blown away. You know, a severe diagnosis is like a tsunami wave just coming in through your kitchen. Kierkegaard, the theologian, said it very well. He said, you know, we spiritually tend to live in routines. I get up in the morning, I brush my teeth, you know, have some bacon and eggs, get in the car, drive to work, turn on my computer. We live in routines because it's safe, it's easy, it gives us a sense of control. But when a major diagnosis comes in, we realize, oh my goodness, we're not in control. And so we tend by nature to look at whatever in the universe is in control, whatever our spiritual religious system might be. We look toward that. And in many cases, you know, by providing a compassion, we allow people who are otherwise so fraught with anxiety to have a little sense of peace, a little sense of serenity, despite their circumstances. But what I want to say, and this is perhaps the thrust of my comments, that these altruistic aspects of professionalism will generally contribute to the well-being and health at the right dose of the professional, him or herself. Ralph Waldo Emerson, in that great essay, Compensation, it is one of the most beautiful compensations of life that no man can sincerely try to help another without helping himself. You know, it doesn't depend on reciprocity. It doesn't depend on reciprocal gain, au contraire, E.O. Wilson. Doesn't matter. See, it's just Emerson saying it's the involvement in the emotional energy of giving unto others that is itself fulfilling. The Hindu poet Tulsidas, this is Gandhi's translation, this and this alone is true religion, to serve others. This is sin above all other sin, to harm others. In service to others is happiness. In selfishness is misery and pain. Albert Schweitzer, Nobel Prize winning physician, musician, and New Testament exegete. The only ones among you who will be really happy are those who have sought and found how to serve. St. Francis of Assisi, echoing a statement from Acts 20. It is better to love than to be loved. Proverbs 11, those who refresh others will themselves be refreshed. The Beatitudes in Matthew, simply a treatise on happiness in a world where every philosophical and religious system promised happiness. Here you have it. The inaugural address of Christ is a statement on happiness. Joyful are those who mourn. Well, you know, if you didn't mourn for the suffering in the world, I would consider you to be a sociopath, right? I mean, there is something, you can take joy in the fact that you have a moral conscience, that you're concerned about others, that you don't morally distance yourself from your neighbor. This book coming out, just to FYI you on this, with Random House in May, collects all this, this research connecting, doing unto others. Again, these are generalizations. That's all that science can allow, and there are lots of exceptions. Statement from Marty Seligman. This is the one I like. This is one of the jacket blurbs from Tim Johnson, from ABC. I was shocked by this. As someone who has long believed that giving is essential to good health. Listen to that, right? I would suggest reading this book before ever dismissing the idea that giving is good medicine. Sister Helen Pragine, author of Dead Man Walking. People are really, I think people feel this. They feel that when they give to others, there is this kind of fulfillment and well-being that follows for themselves as agents. Billy Joel, he had it a little bit wrong, only the good die young. Sometimes they do. But in general, you get a little boost by being good. I worry, I just return to the last point here. I worry sometimes about the thought world of our environment. Jean-Paul Sartre, in Being and Nothingness, that long section on the look, where he says anybody who looks at you with any bit of compassion at all is just trying to manipulate you, because that's all we can do. I remember being a high school boy up in St. Paul School in New Hampshire, and they showed Waiting for Godot. We did a play of Waiting for Godot in Memorial Hall. And I got to tell you, honestly, it was so despairing. I mean, there's no self-transcendence, no giving possibilities. So you know what I did the next day? I had an old trench coat and a couple of cigarettes that I shouldn't have had, and I went down to Charlie's pool hall and smoked, played a couple of games of pool, looking like I had, that sort of existential malaise, So, I don't know. Anyway. Dawkins' book, The Selfish Gene. Look, even though he'll say, all right, phenotypically we may be altruistic in certain respects, the bottom line is that, for him, the gene has taken the place of the soul. I mean, if you want to look for your ultimate essence and identity and fate and being, you don't go to the soul, you go to the gene. And what is the gene? What is at your core? Metaphysically, the gene. And what is the gene? It is a selfish replicator. It is a biological entity trying, and there's all sorts of miscategorizing here in terms of moral terms and intentionality, trying to get itself into the next generation. And you're just some unwitting conduit. But all of your phenotypic compassion really is just the sort of device of a replicator. Hey, thumbs up, baby. Golding the Lord of the Flies. I never liked it, but of course I don't like René Girard. I mean, basically what we're told is that either we're in that Hobbesian state of a war of all against all, or at certain interludes we dump on a scapegoat, kill him, and then go back to the war of all against all. Wonderful stuff. My hat's off to Harry Harlow. If some of you pediatricians, any pediatricians here? You might remember that in the 1940s and early 50s, the mortality rates in pediatric units were through the ceiling. 7-8% of kids sometimes died in certain hospitals. And the effort was just to make everything hygienically pure, right? I mean, just make things as clean as possible. And above all, according to Skinner, keep the baby away from the mother. Above all, right? So this brilliant guy at the University of Wisconsin in Madison, Harry Harlow, did that famous monkey experiment. He had the 2 wire monkeys, right? And one wire monkey just had a bottle of milk, right? And the little monkeys would come get the milk. And then in the other cage, you had a wire monkey with milk, but also with a warm fur, right? This artificial. And so it turns out that the little monkeys who just had the furless contraption, they were neurotic. They did not socialize. Their behavior was completely eccentric, and they died quickly. And the ones who could just have the opportunity to snuggle up to the fur on the wire mother, they actually did reasonably well. And so with Harlow and John Bowlby's work on attachment, we begin to realize truth to the term, man does not live by bread alone. Man does not live by bread alone. And now, of course, as of the mid-1950s, the baby would be immediately introduced to the mother, and that saved how many countless millions of infant lives? The discovery of love. saved more infant lives than most of us will ever imagine. So that's what I wanted to say to you and have a conversation around. It's good to be good. Thanks.